So how do you create a brand that truly represents who you are and the products you sell, as well as building a business that you can scale online? That is what this podcast will help you do. My name is Henry Kaminsky Jr., and welcome to the Brand Doctor Podcast.
Let me just make this statement loud and clear. Jersey's here, Jersey's here.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another Brand Doctor Podcast episode. I am streaming this live, so you may get some interaction with the audience that is on Facebook right now. So that's a little bit of an added value, but I have a very special guest on today's show. So my sister-in-law is a clinical nurse manager at a very well-respected hospital in New York City, and she actually manages the neonatal intensive care unit. So today's topic is understanding how easily you could get this COVID-19 virus and some precautions that we need to take, all of us, to help stop this spread. So without further ado, I want to introduce Francesca Crandall. How are you, doll?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. So I wanted you on the show today to share with us as much as you can, because I understand HIPAA and I understand that you can't get into super details, but we really need to know how serious this really is. And you being on the front lines of this every day since this really broke out, I thought was very valuable to come on and hear it right from your mouth and not from, people from afar or who may not know what the hell they're talking about.
Right. And I totally appreciate that. A little background on me that might help your viewers is I have been a registered nurse for 10 years. I've only worked in a neonatal intensive care unit, so I am specialized. I'm also a lactation consultant, and I have been in nursing leadership for 4.5 years. So currently I'm an assistant nurse manager. So I do manage a unit of approximately 200 employees, 60 patients, all of their family members. And while we in the NICU are a little bit removed from what you're hearing in the media about adults contracting this virus, it still does affect us in some way. So I thought it's important to share the facts. And so we want to always know what the facts are in our reputable sources. And if anyone did have any questions, I would be happy to answer those as well.
Excellent. So those folks on, I'm getting an echo. Okay. All right. Now I'm not. All right, excellent. So those folks on Facebook, if you have any questions for Francesca, drop them in the comments and I'll repeat them for those folks that are going to be listening to this on iTunes and YouTube. So I'll restate the question and I'll have Francesca answer it. So feel free to drop those questions in the comments. So let's get into some of the facts, shall we? Where do you want to start when it comes to this?
It's challenging because what we know, it started in China. Mm-hmm. We hear a lot about Italy. We do know that it has hit many countries. And right now in the United States, and being in New York City, I am at the epicenter of the virus. So my perspective is unique and not equal to people in other states. So I think that's why there's also a discrepancy in how different states are handling this, because unless you're really right in it, you may not understand how serious it is.
Right. And so we hear the things on, I watch the news and it sounds like the world's going to end tomorrow, and part of me says like, how much is that hype and how much is that real? And so, I wanted to get your perspective because I'm a super optimist. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to see those severe cases. I'm going to see what's going on the news and say, this is an overreaction because my brain wants to stay calm and safe and grounded. However, I may be what's the word I'm looking for? Not taking it as seriously as I should. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I really want to get an understanding of how easy it is to catch this and why it's so important to stay home, no matter how stir crazy you get.
Right. And that's fair. Everything you're saying is fair. I think we only know what we know. And in times like this, especially when the media does often sensationalize things, in times like this, we want to be a little bit defensive and be an optimist and say, you know what, maybe it's not so bad. So what I'll tell you is, in the beginning, several weeks ago, I too wasn't taking it quite as seriously, because what we were hearing was, it's just like the flu, it's a virus, don't worry about it, we're a strong country, we'll get through it. And we will. So let me start there. We will get through it. Mm-hmm. But what's important to note is that it is not the flu. So the similarities, I think this will help people understand the similarities between coronavirus and the flu. They're both viruses, right? That's kind of where it ends for now, only because the flu has been around so much longer. We know a lot about it. We know how to treat the symptoms. We know that we have a vaccine, right? And we know that we have a little bit of built up immunity to it. Whereas coronavirus is new. Our bodies, it's a shock to us. We don't know how to quite deal with that yet inside our bodies. So that's why it's hitting us so incredibly hard. In New York City, especially, we're so used to being very close to one another. So I believe that is why we have the epicenter. We have a lot of people in New York City. And right now we're seeing thousands, 20, 30,000 cases of this virus. So here's how it's easily spread, right? It is contact droplet. People are talking about it being airborne. It can become airborne once you're coughing, those particles that are in the air. If you're inside the hospital and you're receiving certain kind of treatment, it can become aerosolized as well, which is why you will see healthcare workers wearing certain protective equipment. Mm. How you as a regular person in your house can catch it is if somebody near you has it and coughs, and those particles are now on a surface, and then you touch that surface, and then you touch your face. It's just as easy as that to contract it. So that's why we got to get back to basics, washing your hands, covering your cough, and distancing. So the reason distancing is so important is every person that you distance yourself from, that's one less individual that you can catch it from, but also one less individual you can spread it to. Because what we also know about this virus, Henry, is that it is so easily spread, even if you don't have any symptoms. And that's the really scary part about it.
And when did the system, real quick, Jess, can you turn down your volume on your computer a little bit? I think that's where we're getting a little bit of the reverb. Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, I think we're good now. Yeah, excellent. Okay, great. Okay, so yes, I totally understand that getting back to the basics is really, really important here, and to understand how easily it is to get this damn thing and to not know the system. So I want to get it from you, because I've heard so many different ways of this being explained. So you could potentially carry the virus and not even know you have it. For how long?
That part is unknown at this point. Generally, we feel that the incubation period, they say quarantine yourself for 14 days, because the theory is if you have it after 14 days, it should, you should be okay. But we don't know 100% yet at what point even if I'm not symptomatic, am I spreading it to others?
Okay. Interesting. So how crazy is it in New York City right now? Like, for real? It's bad. So in my hospital, in being in a neonatal intensive care unit, the exposure I would personally have to this is when a laboring mother who might be positive delivers her baby. And although the babies are not getting the virus vertically transmitted, which means through the labor process, we don't know if they will yet. So what we're doing is we're treating every laboring woman as a person under investigation, which only means that we want to rule them out to make sure they don't have it. So at my hospital, we are testing every person who's in labor to see if they have it. Now, if they are positive for that and their baby does not need to be in the NICU, meaning they're just, they're a regular well baby, they can go with the mom. And the mom will take extra precautions to prevent the spread to the baby. If they do require NICU care, they will come to us. So we do have babies every day born to moms who are positive or born to moms who we don't know the status yet. So we're treating those babies as if they may have it, and we're taking precautions for our staff members. So it's very limited in terms of the neonatal intensive care world at this time. Mm-hmm. Where you're seeing it the most are on the adult units, in the adult ICUs. And I'm not privy to that direct relationship, right? Because I'm not in an adult hospital.
But I do have friends who work in adult ICUs, and both in New Jersey and New York. And I'm hearing firsthand from them how challenging it is to treat these patients. They are not just having mild respiratory symptoms most of the time. You know, the ones that come to the ICU, they're in bad shape. They're on ventilators breathing for them. They are sedated. They're paralyzed for their own good, to try and help them recover. And my colleagues are seeing a lot of infection and a lot of death. And I say that not to scare people, but I think it's important to know that people are dying from this. And it's not just affecting the really, really old or the really immunocompromised. People are dying now who are in their 30s and 40s and seemingly healthy. And so the question is, has this virus mutated? Is it the same exact strain that was in China? I don't know the answer to that right now, but it's an interesting question because we're wondering why now it is affecting so many younger, seemingly healthy individuals.
Interesting. So it really is important to stay the hell home, not only go out for essentials, and really protect ourselves. Like, we won't even have cousin Dion and Paula. Like, we love them to death, and we know that, you know, they're relatively healthy and they've been taking great precautions. But Tori and I, like, sorry, cousin, we don't want you in the house, you know? And like, there's been nobody in this house, you know, for 2 weeks because we're just trying to, you know, shelter ourselves and help other and just not spread it. Who knows? You know, we all have sort of these little coughs. Like, Tori has a little cough. Mm-hmm. I have a little cough. Dante has a little cough, but it doesn't seem to be getting any more severe than it is right now. So that's good. So okay, so here's my big question. Have we peaked yet, in your opinion, as you seeing the cases, you know, continue, like, getting greater and greater, and the death rate getting greater? Have we hit our peak yet, or is that still to come?
Unfortunately, that's still to come. And those sources, such as the CDC and World Health Organization, they believe that it's not going to be for another 3 weeks. Wow. Until we peak. Okay. And that's terrifying. So the other thing you're hearing about on the news, which I can confirm, is worldwide, nationwide, definitely in New York City, we have fantastic resources, but we don't have enough of them. And the reason is, I mean, this is a pandemic, right? We were not prepared for this. And there are patients in the ICU right now who would be there normally. There are patients recovering from the flu in the ICU, from car accidents, from other kind of illness and injury. So it's not as if we're only treating COVID positive patients right now. We still have our normal volume. Add to that this unexpected patient load. So we truly are short in the city nationwide on ventilators, on protective equipment for the staff members. And that's what's making this so challenging. That's why you're going to hear even more in the coming days and weeks that New York City and other places are essentially building hospitals, using places like big buildings in New York, the Javits Center, and other places like that, using those for hospital beds and hospital rooms because we just don't have the space to handle this type of pandemic.
Oh my God. Did they really convert the Javits Center?
I don't think they've done that yet, but I believe Governor Cuomo was talking about that. So they are going to take drastic measures like that. We are receiving help from a military ship.
Yep.
That will have, I believe, approximately 1,000 beds.
Wow.
And they're calling in, retired nurses, travel nurses and physicians and other kind of healthcare workers because we need all hands on deck, truly.
Sure. So what do you have an audience, especially on the Brand Doctor podcast on iTunes. We're getting like 73,000 downloads a month. So you have a very large audience that you're speaking to right now. So if you could tell them one thing to get us through this, what could you tell them? Or if it doesn't have to be one thing, if you could tell them a couple of things, what can you tell these folks so that they understand how serious this is and how we can slow and flatten this curve?
Well, I think I would start with saying that it's important to receive information from reputable sources. Yeah. There's a lot out there in the world, a lot on social media, even a lot in the news that may be skewed a bit, but know your sources, make sure they're the facts, stay calm, because panicking isn't going to help us get through this, right? I understand why we're panicking. It is a very intense situation that we have not experienced in our lifetimes, but definitely stay calm. And please, 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 unless you're essential, and listen, I believe everybody's essential to their jobs. I'm not saying people aren't important in their jobs, but an essential worker is a healthcare worker or somebody who is providing food for the community. Things like that. Unless you're an essential worker, you need to stay home. Yes, you can go out for a walk, but keep your distance. Yes, you can ride a bike, keep your distance. What's concerning is gatherings of people. And that's a little dicey, that one, because you'll hear some sources say, oh, 20 or below is fine. No, 10 or below is fine in terms of having people over. My theory on this is every single person you interact with that is not absolutely necessary to interact with, that's one more person that you're potentially giving the virus to because you may not even know you have it, or you're potentially exposing yourself. So really limit your interactions to your immediate family if you can. Some people have to go to the doctor for managing chronic conditions. We understand that. Some people are going to be going into labor. We understand that. But really limiting your interactions with people. And that's a hard thing. We're such a social society. It's really challenging to say that to people. But I wouldn't tell you something that I wouldn't do myself. And if I could stay in my home every single day, I would absolutely be doing it. Fortunately, I'm a healthcare worker, so I can help people. Unfortunately, that means I'm at risk. So we're asking for the health and well-being of our communities, of our healthcare workers. In order to flatten the curve, we really need to stay at home.
Okay. I love it. I love it. And I should have asked this. I'm asking this a little bit of out of order. So forgive me, folks. And also, I see a lot of people jumping on Facebook. If you guys have questions, please drop them in the comments. We have Francesca here to field those questions. She's a reputable source. She's a registered nurse. She's a clinical nurse manager. So she's definitely got the insights that you may not be able to get elsewhere. So I want to encourage any questions that are coming up on Facebook that you guys have that you may want addressed. Now, the question that I'm asking out of order is, what are some of the symptoms that you should be looking out for immediately if you think you've contracted this virus?
That's a great question. And initially, people were just saying fever and cough. Those are still two very important symptoms. A fever, typically over 100, a dry cough are what we are seeing most often. It can also include a sore throat, and it actually can also include abdominal pain and diarrhea, we're finding out now. So if you have any combination of those symptoms, what I would first encourage you to do is to, if you have a mask in your home, put it on so you're protecting the people in your house. Then I would encourage you to contact your provider to do maybe a virtual doctor visit so you don't necessarily have to leave the house. A lot of places now, a lot of organizations are going to virtual doctor visits, especially during this time. So all you have to do is just call up your provider, say, are you offering a virtual visit or do I have to come in? Urgent care facilities around you may also be able to assist you. The very last thing you want to do is go to the ER. Of course, if you have trouble breathing, you need to go to the emergency room. But we want to reserve the emergency room visits for people with true emergencies, such as difficulty breathing. And like I said, the other things that are still going to be happening, car accidents, other illness and injury, right? And the more you go to places like the emergency room, the more you are exposing yourself to this virus. So that's why if you can manage your symptoms at home and you're comfortable and you can talk to a doctor virtually about your symptoms, that will also help reduce the spread.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, great. This is really good information. I appreciate this. Okay, so Anna Marie Bolds on Facebook asks, I am considered high risk with diabetics. What can I do to protect myself?
Great question, Anna Marie. I would say the same thing that we're telling everybody else. Distance yourself as much as possible from individuals. I don't know if you live alone or if you live with family members, but even around your own family members, if they're leaving the house, even to get groceries, you want to be cautious about being in a close proximity to them. For example, since I work in a hospital, even if I didn't, I would still do this. When I come home every day, because I'm exposed, I know for sure, I take my clothes off right away. I put them in the wash. I take a shower. I wipe down the handles of doors. I wipe down light switches, anything I've touched. And I'm currently living with my mother. I go to one part of the house and she goes to the other part of the house. We meet in the kitchen for meals, but we're still 6 feet apart. So you can still interact with your family members, but you may want to keep your distance because, like I said, any one of us could be a carrier and you want to protect yourself.
What a great answer. I hope that helps, Anna Marie. So, yeah, you bring up a good point. I've been thinking about this lately, too. She says, thank you, Jess. One of the things that is really bothering me now, and I'm sure everybody else is feeling this. So I have an elderly father. He's 77, but he's in good shape. It sucks that I haven't seen him in a month. Now It's going to probably be another couple months until, I feel comfortable enough of either going up there or having him come here. And it just sucks. So think about the loved ones that you aren't in contact with or can't be in contact with right now, and how long it's going to take for you to see them again physically if we don't start stepping up and taking these precautionary measures more seriously. So I just want to throw that out there to you guys and understand this is some serious shit.
I mean, it really is. And I think it's okay to be blunt with people. Because I think some people really need the hard facts. For example, my grandmother went into the hospital about a week ago. She said she was having trouble breathing. So, of course, we're in panic mode. She has COVID. She did not. They actually ruled that out right away without even doing a test. But we found out that she had a ruptured, or rather a perforated gallbladder and was septic, meaning she had a severe full body infection. And I'm telling you this because one of the hardest things about the situation was she was in the ambulance by herself. She was at the ER by herself. She got the surgery and is recovering by herself. And I say by herself because, yes, of course, she has wonderful healthcare workers around her, but nobody is allowed to visit her. No visitors inside the adult hospitals. New York City is moving that direction, and my hospital already did that on the adult side. So it's not just affecting us in our little worlds where we're stuck at home and it stinks and we don't really want to be stuck in the house. But really think of it this way, people are having babies without support visitors, without their partners, without support people because we have to restrict that visitation. People are having surgeries alone. People are dying without their family members there because it's too risky to have the visitors inside the hospital. So this is really, really huge. We've never done that. In terms of restricting visitation. We've never done it because it's not ideal for the patient or the family, right? And even funerals are limiting guests to like 5 or 10 people and doing things virtually. So this is unprecedented. We're in a scary time. It's frightening. And that's why we really just need to follow instructions and stay home when we can for as long as possible so that we can prevent this from spreading any further than it already has.
I love it.
Also, I just have to say this because I think it's so scary that I think this will kind of help some people understand how bad it is right now in New York. So in some states, I've heard that governors haven't really cracked down yet, maybe because they aren't seeing the high numbers that we're seeing. So of course, we're going to take different actions than other states. And our governor's been great about that, New Jersey as well. We've had a lot of support in trying to prevent the spread. But you'll hear in other states, or maybe even in our own, people are still having gatherings at their homes. They're still having their weddings, and they're still having, people over in close proximity unnecessarily. And while that's going on, hospitals in New York City are renting refrigerated trucks to store bodies. And that is because we can't fit them all in the morgue. And I'm not trying to totally scare everybody, but it's important to understand how serious this is. We truly don't have enough space in our hospitals to to house the bodies of people that are dying from this virus and other complications in their hospital stay. So while people are kind of being a little lackadaisical about the restrictions, we're dealing with actual life and death, and we're having to rent trucks to essentially remove the bodies. And that's just never happened before. So we really, really need everybody to be on the same page. Without getting political, whatever you think about the president doesn't matter at this point, but we need him as a leader to really take leadership and ownership and help us stop this. We need him to direct the leaders in the other states to help us stop this. Everybody needs to come together and be on the same page, or the peak may not be in 3 weeks. The peak may be longer than that if we can't really get this to a smaller number.
That's a great point. And I want to encourage everybody in their households to step up and be leaders, like Francesca's saying, and put the gauntlet down. Like, you know, we all tease my wife because she's like a worrywart, but this is a very serious matter. And I usually like to just fire her up and compete with her all the time.
Don't we all?
Right. But I'm not this time, because why get her all excited? Why get her all fired up? Right. This is very, very serious, and I'm happy and I'm glad that you came on. You know, I will be honest with you guys. I almost canceled this interview because I thought I was a little late for this type of information. A lot of my colleagues, you know, had reputable sources on last week, and I felt like, well, you know, maybe I'm just too late. They could get it from the news. And then I was like, no, you, and my sister-in-law reminded me, she's like, you know, you have a large audience, and, you know, I think it's your responsibility to step up and share this type of information with them. And so, you know, we can help flatten this curve. So thank you, Chess, for prodding me to continue with this interview. And I'm happy because I'm looking at the numbers on Facebook, and, you know, there's 17 people that are watching this currently, plus all the replays that are going to be seen after this gets done producing. So, you know, guys, this is a really serious thing. And I want you guys to know this. So if you own a business and you're hurting right now, think about that. You know, if you're away from a family member who you haven't seen in a while, think about that. You know, think about what you can't do right now because of this thing, and maybe use that as some force to say, all right, you know, I really do want to go and do that, whatever it is. Well, maybe I shouldn't, because one, I can help save a life. This is, you know, I see those memes and I was like, oh my God, this is a little too much, is it? No, it's not. Now that I'm hearing the rented, you know, refrigeration trucks and that just, it's awful. It's awful.
Yeah, and you'll see that in the news. It will get worse before it gets better with anything. So it will seem a lot worse in the next few weeks, because it will now trickle into the other states where maybe there aren't a lot of cases. Think of it this way. In New York City, we are increasing our capacity in our hospitals to accept more patients. And even though we're doing that, even though we have the help from the military, even though maybe we're going to be opening up other, you know, hospitals that they're essentially building now, eventually the patients will have to go somewhere, and they'll go to neighboring states to receive care. So this isn't just affecting New York City, and it won't just affect New York City. It will continue to trickle into the rest of the United States. So it's important for everybody to be on the same page about that. Awesome.
So let's recap here real quick for those folks that may be just joining us on Facebook. The topic of conversation is understanding how easily you can get this virus. And so Jesse mentioned that it's not an airborne virus. However, finish that sentence.
Yeah. However, you know, in the hospital, if we're intubating a patient, or they're on a certain kind of breathing machine, or we're suctioning their secretions, right? Particles can get into the air, and it can become aerosolized. So it can kind of live in the air for a little bit, and that's why we're wearing certain protective equipment. But it is mostly spread via the cough, via droplets. So that's why it's so important to cover your cough and wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. I can't say that enough. Back to basics, wash your hands several times a day. More than that, when you think you've touched something, wash your hands. Because if you are not symptomatic, and let's say you've wiped down all the handles in your house, you've gone crazy for the day, you've cleaned everything, you're not symptomatic, but you still technically have the virus. You touch your face, you touch the light switch, there you go. It's right back there. And like I said, we're not quite sure 100% for each person when that virus will leave their body. So it's so important to clean. I'm still not sure why everyone's hoarding toilet paper, but I would understand more about the hand sanitizer and like the Clorox wipes. That makes sense to me. But definitely keep your home as clean as possible and keep your hands as clean as possible.
One last question. I know I'm skipping around a little bit, and I appreciate your time and you sticking around a little longer.
Yeah.
Somebody was asking the other day, can you get it again if you already have gotten it?
Great question. I think because it's new, we're not 100% sure yet. Based on how other viruses spread and continue to spread, I would imagine the answer is probably yes. For example, we have a flu season every year, right? So between October and April every year, people get the flu. And even if you had the flu once, you could get it again the next year. Maybe it'll be a different strain, maybe not, but you can get it again. With that being said, you also do build up immunity when you've had the flu. So my understanding would be that it's still in the new phases, so we're not 100% sure. I imagine, yes, you would be able to get it again. And like I said, it might be a different strain. And I imagine there will be a coronavirus season, just like a flu season. My hope is that enough people will have gotten it already that perhaps they will be immune, and maybe if they get it, it won't be as severe, and that often happens with the flu. My hope also, too, is that we have a vaccine at some point, because we do know, based on scientific facts, whether you agree with vaccines or not, we do know that vaccines can help drastically reduce illness. So if you look at polio, look at measles. After those vaccines came out, there were countries that virtually eliminated those illnesses. So yes, I do think it's possible to get it again. I don't know how soon after you've already had it would you get it, or if it would be as severe.
Got it. Excellent. Francesca Crandall, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing your insights, sharing your experience, and sharing your knowledge as a nurse. And helping our community stay safer. You stepped up today, and I really appreciate that. And for those folks that want to learn more or could want to learn more about the virus, what reputable sources could you refer them to?
So the CDC has a great site. I believe it's coronavirus.gov, but you can get to it through the CDC website. A lot of great facts on there. So I would start there. I think that's the most important source right now. It's constantly updated. If you have any additional questions, I'm happy to answer them. You can also reach out to your healthcare providers. I'm sure they're happy to answer them as well. What I will say is, yes, this is scary. It doesn't seem right now like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I assure you there is. And it's important to follow instructions from your leaders and also try and keep a positive attitude because, maybe even a silver lining would be that now you have more time to spend with your family if you're fortunate enough to be, locked in with them. Or we're finding more creative ways to hang out with our friends. I mean, just yesterday, a friend of mine had a virtual dance party. He was a DJ. And tonight we're doing virtual game nights. So it is an interesting time where we can be a little more creative with how we're reaching out to our loved ones. But definitely keep a positive attitude and try and stay home. Those are the most important things.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, guys. Stay safe, stay well, protect your families, save other people's lives as well by doing what you're told. And eventually this will this will pass. It will pass. This isn't going to be forever, but we will prolong this thing if we don't take it serious and we think this is a game. And just because you live in Bumble, Central America, that doesn't mean that it's not coming your way. Mm-hmm. So think about that, right? So if you want this thing to end sooner than later, let's all as a community, as human beings, come together and break this thing's back as a team. Okay? So have an amazing day, guys, and I will catch you on the next episode real soon. Take care. Hey everyone, this is Henry Kaminsky Jr. again, and really quick, I want to invite you to a one-on-one consult with me right now if you're looking for the clarity and focus you need to build your brand. Over the past 13 years, I've served hundreds of entrepreneurs that have great products but struggled tremendously with articulating its value to their ideal customers. You didn't get into business to just change a few lives, did you? Your ideal clients need you. And when your brand has precision-crafted messaging coupled with beautifully thoughtful design that sounds, looks, and feels like you, they'll know you're the perfect match for them. If this is something you're struggling with, what I want you to do right now is pause this audio and go visit www.uniquedesigns with a Z at the end, not an S, .net, and book your one-on-one consult call with me. Remember, the quality of your brand will determine the quality of your clients, and the quality of your clients will determine the quality of your life.